everyone. My name is Naomi DeWinter, and I have the privilege of serving as president of Muscatine Community College. And I will give some welcoming and introductory remarks for this year's Alexander Clark lecture series. First of all, I'm a member of the Alexander Clark Foundation Board, and I see many of my co-members in the audience. I just want to give a shout out to them. Dan Clark, Kemp Sissel, Melanie Alexander, Jay Brady, Oz Malcolm, Kirk Thompson, and Jim Nepple. And we put on a lecture program every evening to keep the memory of Alexander Clark alive and the importance that he contributed to not only Muscatine, but to the country and to the world. It was about 150 years ago that Alexander Clark fought and won a Supreme Court decision to let his daughter, Susan, attend Muscatine Public School. Of course, now we have our middle school named after her, Susan Clark. Susan herself went on to graduate from Muscatine High School with honors in 1871. Mr. Clark became famous in politics and in his church. He traveled widely and was in much demand as an orator. He went on to earn a law degree at the University of Iowa just after his son did, and did many, many wonderful things, including serving his country in Liberia as United States ambassador. So just to put us in the framework of all the wonderful things that Alexander Clark did for us. And tonight we have a very, very special program. I'd like to invite my colleague, Krista Regenetter of the Stanley Center for Peace and Security to tell us a little bit about tonight's program and also introduce our actors.
So, as Naomi said, I'm Krista Regenetter. I'm the Program Officer for Global Education at the Stanley Center for Peace and Security. And the Stanley Center and the Muscatine Arts Center work together to commission a play about Alexander Clark. There's been lots of efforts in our community to get this story out, and we thought that play would be a really interesting way to make the story more accessible to different people. And so we were introduced, where did Sienna go? I can't see, there she is. We were introduced to Sienna Jones last year, and who is an MFA playwright candidate at the University of Iowa. And it was really cool because we kind of just said, we want to play Alexander Clark. And what she created, I think, is really wonderful, and I'm very excited for you all to be the first public. We did have a high school reading of it today, but first open to the public theatrical reading of the play. So I'm going to turn it over to CNN and the cast to introduce themselves.
Hi, thank you all for coming. Thank you for being here. I'm Sienna Jones. I'm the playwright.
Josh Turner. I'm the director and I'm reading stage directions.
Hi, I'm Kayla Leacock and I'm reading for Rebecca Clark.
Hi, I'm Preston Coleman and I'm reading for Jim White.
Hi, I'm Joey Lapierre and I'm playing Mr. Borland and John Brown.
Hi, I'm Alicia Philadelphia and I'm playing Catherine Clark.
Hi, I'm Randy Jackson Almeida and I'm reading for Alexander Alex Clark.
Howdy, I'm Isaiah Margoins, reading for Barberman.
Hi, I'm Hunter Meyer, and I'm reading for DC Cloud and Agent.
Hi, I'm Sophia Polkeen and I'm reading for Susie Clark.
Barberman, The Alexander Clark Story by Sienna Jones. Part 1, Flood. A doorway entry bell dings. Barberman, in his barber clothes, hums, being attentive to sharpening his blade.
Just in time. You come to the right chair, right blade, right shot. I'm also right-handed, so I won't be doing you any wrongs.
Barberman is ambidextrous. He shows it off.
What kind of cut you want? Kind of look, kind of vision, or a vision, or oh. Oh, I see. Oh, yes, it's you. I know exactly what you're here for.
Barberman exits and returns carrying a box, sealed tightly by twine that he handles with great care. Barberman sets it on the center of his barber cart. He readies his freshly sharpened blade, going in for the twine. The closer he gets, the more energy the box emits.
No holding back. No holding back. What's in here needs to be given. And when it's been got, you gotta live with it. But don't worry, I'll be right everywhere.
Slice. The twine falls away and the box pops open. Steam flourishes out, hitting Barberman's face. He inhales it deeply, and it's like it's renewing something inside him, something old and supposed vesseling through. The space's sound swells with the distant lappings of a river that carry the moles of speech and word tossed and flowing on slappy receipts.
It won't be just us.
Have you embraced your inhalation?
Yes.
Such biased caveats of religious
Fire! Fire!
Barberman reaches inside the box and pulls out a steaming hot rolled towel. He presents it to the audience, letting it unfold.
This ain't got nothing to do with the order of things, and everything to do with the order of things. Yes.
He gently rubs the skin with the towel, softly starting the liquid.
Make sure to get the throat. Gotta get the throat, heat it up. Ready, ground for ready blade. You're gonna be pieces by the end of this. Full disassemble, promise. With this blade, I'll shave you down. Close, a timeless cut. When we do a timeless cut around here, get your blade real sharp and shiny. Think about the metal, where it came from. The earth. Imagine that. Soil, deep decomposed, making minerals from metal. That dirt. Time flows different in the dirt. Things get lost, buried. Nothing like some flood to loosen, nothing like some steam to cook it. Oh! That weepy stuff on your neck, like some drowning sprouts. Sprouts pecking out trying to tell you all they learned from that dirt. Before they can, shave them off. Cutting off that message you could have gotten. So to make up for it, I'll tell you something instead. I get a fresh hot towel and set it around your neck. It's important, warming up your throat. Wrap your face too. Warm the skull, let them press those water vapors into your mind. You'd have thought you traveled into the story, into my telling, into time. Less. Got you wondering how some hot water sends some to the future and some to the past.
Steam has filled the space.
There had been a man who had that hot water. He rolled that hot water. He was that hot water. Came on a boat that breathed that hot water. Steaming GW, George Washington on a Mississippi ride, cutting through the river. He was cutting on the river, cut down to Bloomington, 1842. And who would have thought? I mean, I might have knew. When he was in the board of that boat, he'd be bringing that hot breath too. Woo! Steaming. Such a heated scent on it. It walked through the crowds and boiled them up. The people walking out like smelling like something fresh. Hot water opening things right on up. Ports. Right here, Bloomington, Iowa. Muscatine before Muscatine was Bloomington, Iowa.
A headstone pushes forth from the steam.
Yes, bringing it up, bringing it all up. And ain't none of this ghost business. No, this really here, this is present business. You understand? Iowa, a territory since century turn, with slavery illegal as parlay of the Missouri Compromise, admitted to the Union in 1846 as a free state. But the era of freedom, like in many places, was not more than just that. There. The Act to Regulate Blacks and Mulattoes, 1838. That legal mechanism, that barrier, it won $500 and some court-issued freedom papers just for entry. Let alone upon admission, wouldn't be all aboard in the rights restriction roller coaster. Voting, education, military service, interracial marriage, testifying in a court against a European American, all inaccessible and illegal to the black people migrating to Iowa. Regulation. That word. Exists to maintain authority, uphold power. Then they're going to turn around and call that regular. Makes wonder, I think, about the place that the drive for change comes from. The thought of legacy and revolution. That's nice, but I think it's almost always personal. And in that sense, it got a little bit more love to it. Passion, ambition, care, humanity, persistence, and tribulation.
The sound of a determined axe chopping into a tree. Barberman minds chopping into a tree with his blade.
Do you feel it yet? It's all said and done now, and something's coming down.
As the gravestone recedes, we hear a tree crash down. Light shift, transition. Mr. Borland's hotel lobby. Jim White swoops in the corner.
Evening, sir. You must be out from out of town. Are you in need of a room?
Might be.
Well, I hope our accommodations fit you well. We have a nice spot down the first hall that's just been cleaned over. If you'd like, I'd be happy to
Just
show
you two?
Agent stares down the sweeping Jim. In fact, Agent's sight has sustained upon him.
Pardon?
Working? Just you and that boy right there?
How about I see you to your room, sir?
You got a name, boy?
He's just working. He's not even around.
Name?
Sir, he's of no concern to me.
Agent snatches Jim by the collar. Jim struggles.
Let me see your face. Let me see your face,
Let
boy.
go of him right now, sir. Sir, stop.
Agent throws Jim to the ground and draws his pistols.
Tell me your name. Ain't Jim White? Jim White?
Please, please!
Agent kicks Jim hard in the stomach. Jim gasps.
Think you're hot-footed? Dr. Mary said to arrest you when I find you, get you back to St. Louis, breathing or not.
Just as Agent goes for the trigger, Mr. Borland tackles him. The guns fly from Agent's hands, sliding on the ground near to Jim. Mr. Borland and Agent rally hand-to-hand on the ground. Jim eyes the guns, the chaos. Mr. Borland sees Jim. Jim's reaching for him. Mr. Borland whops Agent hard in the face and pins him down.
No, Jim. Mr. Clark's house. Now, go.
Agent smacks Mr. Borland back. Jim scrambles up and takes off.
Running like that, when you like the pins on, and the kind of speed everyone might feel in a lifetime. This wasn't the first time Jim White ran like that. No, no, no.
Jim bursts to a halt, banging and weeping on the floor.
Mr. Clark! Mr. Clark!
Alexander Clark rushes out in his nightclothes. Jim White falls into them, pleading.
They come for me!
Alexander quickly ushers the shuddering Jim White inside. Transition to inside the wooden one-story Clark home. The distraught Jim is seated. Catherine aids Jim.
Have some water. Miss Clark, they're gonna get me. Have a blanket. I don't know St. Louis. This is what I know. This is all I got. Oh, my head.
Catherine drapes the blanket on Jim and helps him take a sip of water.
Mr. Clark, look at me, Jim. Those people will not take you. We're gonna get this right, okay?
Catherine carries Jim's whole soul in her gaze.
By means of his communal connections, Mr. Clark was able to get the agent who was after Jim arrested under kidnapping charges. Surprised? You must understand the man we're talking about here. See, Alexander Clark was respected by many of the Bloomington's peoples. Black, white, many. From the early points of his time since moving there, he had positioned himself a savvy businessman and investor, in addition to his abolitionist, civil, and suffrage work. And by trade, since he was 13 years old, Mr. Clark was a well-trained, highly skilled barber. And trust, like recognizes like.
The Barberman does a barber trick.
Had his own shop in Bloomington and everything. Just a young man in his 20s, cutting the hairs of notable politicians, news editors, and, well, everybody, really. He also owned land, woodlands, whose timber he sold to the steamboats in the Mississippi. And he farmed. Yes, and he was lucrative towards his investments in his community. Alongside his wife, Catherine, and 32 other members, they founded the African Methodist Episcopal Church in 1849, which not only was headquartered on the property site Alexander co-purchased with a Mr. Benjamin Matthews only a year prior. He was a layered man, especially for his time.
Jim White is let out in handcuffs under a spotlight.
And yet, when it all boils down, man that he was, Mr. Clark was still just that, a man. And in the eyes of some, barely just that. Within the law, the realms of liberty were unpredictable, to say the least. In the case of Jim White came something unpredictable, to say the least.
Gavel. Jim White gasps as he is released from his cuffs. Alexander is there.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. This means the world. And having you watching the proceedings of my fate, I'm sure you became a charm in this courtroom.
Mr. White, if anyone is in here served as your charm, it was the Honorable D.C. Cloud. Surrendered by way of entry into a free state by the previous owner. Clever man.
Yes. I gotta tell Mr. Boland.
Before you go, Jim, I want you to be aware out there. Now, you've got the law on your side, but
Sir, I know. Law ain't some physical thing to stop him from dragging me back to hell, I know.
Well, one of these days, maybe it will be. If we get all portions that uphold life, the actuality to allow us to live, then maybe, Mr. White, maybe.
Jim exits. Alexander watches him go. DC Cloud passes Alexander.
Justice Cloud, I don't believe we've met. Alexander Clark, I hope you realize the monument of your ruling here today, sir.
Just following the law as it was posed. It shames me how some of my fellow justices bend in such biased caveats of our legislature. Alexander Clark, you said? Might we be passably familiar?
Yes. I'm acquainted with one of the lawyers of your firm, Mr. Henry O'Connor.
Oh, yes, Henry. He's a hungry one.
That's why we get along. It is true work on the part of many of us. I believe you among them for, at the very least today. I was born free, Justice Cloud, but I'm not so removed. Like any other person of my constitution, I could be stolen away in the night by audacious yet highly protected claims on my life. It is a difference of mere miles as to whether I wear those chains. And as I'm sure you are aware, sir, the miles on the Mississippi travel quickly and question few. But today gives me hope in our lines of law and liberty, sir. And I treasure this feeling in that I was witness to avail and to.
DC Cloud looks at him, really looks at him, and he sees something shining.
Fantastic to meet you, Mr. Clark.
And you, Justice Cloud.
River waters wash out the scene and bring in a rumbling.
The looming event that both Alexander and Jim White had in mind ended up being ignited almost immediately following the ruling. Southern sympathizers, out of bounds with the law, attempted to lay trap for Jim White by way of false ride across the river to Chicago. Luckily for Jim, Mr. Clark had foresight. Pretending to go along with the plan and meet those con transporters on the river with Mr. White, Mr. Clark and Mr. White went on the water in a pitch, low through the night, listening and watching for those con boatmen to take their leave. Afterwards, Mr. Clark and Mr. White returned safely to Mr. Clark's home for rest.
Catherine paces and stirs. Alexander and Jim enter. Catherine runs to hold Alexander.
It didn't feel like a good night, but you're both safe?
It's all right.
My debt as always. You two saved my life.
Rest, Mr. White.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sometimes I think things won't ever get better. When I look at Jim White, I remember myself. Not that I could ever forget. You never forget what it feels like for your you to mean nothing. To be owned and handled, wrangled up, tied off, and yanked back time after time by rope going up, chains going down. I can never shed that feeling, that purview of my childhood. Was this heart, these hands, my mind ever my own? And am I born to die as no I? I cannot remember myself, Alex. I do not remember if I am here before you today or an imagination of supposed then. Or am I just a stranger long kept beside you, hidden in this wooden house on free lands, who at any moment will forget how to drink a drop of water? I fear the poison of believing in relief, and all it in twist and confusion ingrained upon a child. A child. A child. Oh, Alex.
He holds her.
I think I am Jim White.
Tightly, he rocks her.
You are Catherine Griffin Clark. Katie. She is loved, and she is not enslaved. Hasn't been for a long time, and by my life, will never be again.
I couldn't breathe. I thought they were going to drown you.
I know these waters. I could drown and come back knowing how to breathe air under.
I am as determined as you in every pursuit for us all. But tonight, the danger of it was more.
Alexander checks her forehead and cheeks with his hands.
Aren't you too warm?
I am. I'm just.
Katie,
I'm.
what's going on?
I'm just.
Catherine pulls an open letter from her pocket.
A letter from John Brown. He heard about Jim's case and was wondering if you'd need any assistance with his safety.
Ah, well, now we know that won't be necessary.
Alexander goes for the letter, but Catherine snatches it back.
You know I hold a subject of respect towards Mr. Brown, and your circles blending with his aren't unexpected, but I do understand the idea of correction for blood to be by in blood. That is the least for what they do to us, what they did. I just don't want your blood to drain away with his, Alex. Things are different now. It won't be just us anymore.
It dawns on him.
Katie, pretty sure.
A smile sneaks upon his face that gradually infects her own. He takes her up in his arms and they hold each other.
Unexpected. The future takes many forms in our lives. Rebecca was born in 1849, firstborn. She was named after Alexander's mother, Rebecca Howard. And a couple months later, Catherine be pregnant again with her second child, a son, John, born in 51.
Early sunshine and harmonious birds. Alexander works his land. He tools a plot. Somewhere, Catherine hums a soothing tune that rocks on the air, pleasantly into Alexander's ears. Alexander drops his tool and gently takes to the fertile soil with his hands. Catherine laughs lightly. He cups and cradles the new and fragile soil. Katie and Alex are beaming, glowing.
But 1852.
Thunder, lightning, rain pours, a storm, a full storm. The sun is covered, its light leaving Catherine. Her enshadowed self falls to her knees. Alexander's body shakes as he rises. The once fertile soil slops through his fingers, falling away like rock. The storm passes, but all is gray now.
1852, they lost John. Ever think about how many pieces does a soul fracture into when it breaks? I wonder if it's enough to steal away with every loss we have in our lifetime. And I wonder if when something replenishes us, how apt it is to add to us without taking the place of that gap. How harmonious for us to hold both life and death as we go day by day.
A baby cries.
1852, they had Ellen.
Catherine and Alexander are an echo of themselves. Catherine exits, cradling a cautious smile. Alexander lays before the plot of dirt.
Time moves different.
Barberman saunters to Alexander, places a sealed letter in his hand, and fades off. Alexander limply drags himself up and looks at it. It piques him. He hurriedly rips open the envelope and yanks out its pages. He reads as he rises, and reads and he's rising, reads and he's running. Alexander bursts home to find Catherine rocking out with him.
Katie!
Shh! Catherine hustles off to put Ellen down and returns.
What are you running in here screaming for when I just got her down?
He stares at her with a look she's never seen.
What's happened?
He carefully slips the letter into her hands.
In the 1853 Muscatine chapter of the Convention of African Americans unanimously elects Mr. Alexander Clark as our representative of this year's colored convention in Rochester, New York. I don't understand. You didn't attend that meeting the other day. They took an elected vote without you.
Nominated in my absence. Katie, I'm not sure. I mean, representative of all these people? New York? It's a whole way away, and I...
Rips the letter in two. She gives half to him.
It doesn't weigh what you think. See? And I'm holding half. I'm always holding half. And you do the same for me.
Always.
Barberman shakes out a cape that drapes over the entire scene. He sharpens his blade.
Trouble with a close shave, close to the throat, is balance. Between a delicate new exposure of vulnerable skin and the pressure of the blade. It's too much and you'll nick. Too much and it's like more than just drop of blood. But the risk is to stop people from getting it. No, a cut like that will change your life. You change a lot of lives actually. Shape it up and cut around those ears now. You need to retain the cut's influence on the mind. I'm not the only one who makes it look easy either. No. Plenty been doing that well before me.
Newspapers flutter from above, sliding down the draped cape. Barberman billows it, bouncing the papers before the audience.
These here were plucked straight from the mind of Frederick Douglass himself. The Frederick Douglass Papers, to which the following, the color convention of '53. Alexander was distribution agent for said paper from Muscatine, Iowa. The spirit of momentum flurried in the country. Momentum spared also by growing disunion in the country. Fractures were being sent all over with some bones resetting stronger than ever. But as one might imagine, pain still comes with fracturing itself. In 1854, Alexander and Catherine's young Ellen passed on.
Barberman releases the cape. An empty stage is all that remains until chimes lull in some wind.
But on the gentler storms again. Susan G. Clark was born. Life is gigantic. I am in awe of how we come together, how circumstances can bind us closer, how memory can usher us on for more.
Unseen voices read aloud.
Petition to allow free Negroes into Iowa.
To the Honorable, this General Assembly of the State of Iowa.
Your petitioners, the colored citizens of Muscatine County, Iowa, pray your honorable bodies to repeal the act entitled Our Act to prohibit the immigration of free Negroes into this state.
Approved February 5th, 1851, as in duty bound, we will ever pray.
January 1855.
Alexander Clark.
Reverend D. Anderson.
N.C. Harrison.
Thomas C. Marks.
William Daniel James Warner.
Ripon B. Keith.
Chaz Jackson.
X. Robert D. Young.
X. John Stewart.
Joseph Cook.
X. Benjamin Matthews.
X. William Anderson.
Peter Boyd.
X. Elton Bias.
J.P. Pritchard.
Cyrus Woods.
Jenkins Pinot.
X. Charles Prehon.
X. George Manning.
X. Charles Ed Matthews.
Reverend William C. Trevin.
A.E. Jackson.
X. Jane Motz.
Hannah Matthews.
Pirate Stewart.
X. Ellen Anderson.
Dolly Baez.
X. Deborah Pritchard.
Catherine Clark.
X. Margaret Boyd.
Jan Allen.
Enter Alexander's mother.
X. Rebecca Howard Clark.
Viz. The above named persons are all colored citizens of Muscatine, Iowa. Alex Clark.
The patter of little feet and giggles. Rebecca rustles up her skirt, shuffles to the side, and calls off.
Susie! Susie! Hey, watch for Alex! Becca, get a handle of those kids.
Alexander guides Rebecca into her rocking chair. He brings her a hot cup of tea. Catherine enters with a newspaper.
Stopped by the Reverend on my way back. Updated me on Mr. Henry O'Connor's petition. Says it's broken over 100 signatures.
100.
Black and white people signing. Between his petition now and yours from 2 years ago, the pressure's only been building. Things really are changing. At this rate, we might just get those black laws repealed in one sweep.
There's still ample holdout in the legislature.
Alexander retrieves a piece of paper for a letter and starts writing.
I have to head back to the AME. Who's that one for? I can send it out on my way.
You reminded me. Needed to answer back to Mr. Douglas. Would you take it to the... Wait, no. I'm not sure which city he might be in anymore. Best to send it to Chicago. If anything, you can reach him through the paper.
They trade off the letter and newspaper. Catherine exits. Alexander reads the paper.
Alex.
He stops.
Mama?
She simply rocks, looking at him, a vivid glint in her gaze. She waves him over to her. Alexander smiles, he goes, sits at her feet, and resumes his reading. And she watches him.
There was a time in life before I knew these lands, where it would not be a question of whether or not my children would be born free, where they were not treated like property by people who materialized such ownership from soil and suffice. A place abundant to the soul where, in its hold, every step we walked was the heartbeat of avidous ancestors. Such hearts, such patterns infused us. But in this realm of hostility, entrapped, enslaved, we were infused again. I bit into my own flesh, to the rivers of my plains, and sucked dry all poison, or as much as I could manage. Some drops so blend. And they sting me with every reminder of the depths of what was robbed and what is endangered. son has wise teeth, and he will detail to many how to transfuse the malnutrition and cravings of their blood and bodies and cultivate the freedom dish. The heat on him, fiery palate. I can see that. How many more hours of stoking will it take? Or might he burn?
Somewhere, a tea kettle sings. Part 2, libations. Barberman strikes a match, an outdoor fire in the woods at night. Barberman is the fire in the woods. Alexander sits across John Brown, both illuminated by the heated light.
Southern, rights, Harper's Ferry, an attack, a raid. Part of him wants to address it differently. I only exposed the divide that was already there, that was hidden in the quick-tongued politicians bending words like rights.
You're dead, John.
And you're dreaming.
The papers, the images, the articles, they've martyred you up north.
And punished me by south. And I was stern in my reasoning. Nothing can be twisted of my motives, Mr. Clark.
You've gone as Katie said you would, by blood.
Have you embraced your impellation, Mr. Clark? I killed to save. Action for action on bloody hands, and I welcome the red color of my fingernails. It is only 10 for me when I think of all the hands of those enslaved, the layers of oxidized red, turned brown, blended into their own skin, to the point where whole half a country turns away in the assumption that the dullied tone was inherent. My 10 are pink in relation and would never measure the cost of their pain. I embrace my death, hanged, all right. Then the names of those I took will cut away with my own breath for the splitting country who crushed my neck.
Barberman blows out the fire. Sounds of cannons, gunfire, and drums. A candlelight. Alexander, at his writing desk, pens a letter. We see Barberman reciting said letter as it's being written.
August 1862. Governor Kirkwood, as the Civil War pulls away the men from their homes to lay down their lives for the Union's cause, I remark the state of Iowa, a free state, a reflective, early manifestation of the future that the military marches for. I recount the judicial inferences of the case of Jim White, wherein the authority of the free state was exercised and exhibited as a physical line of liberation, whose entry can hollow its seeker. Or the more recent case of Archer Webb, which occurred the same year wherein justice overruled the arrest of Mr. Webb and strike against the migration law here in Iowa, and an affirmation of application of the United States Constitution to Mr. Archer Webb, therein aligning him with the man, inclusive of the mighty document. Governor, I am entranced with these records of movement occurring in our state as I see the legislative scales ethnic correction for the atrocities of our country. And in service, I am impelled to offer myself and my spirit to aid in this war for our country. While I cannot march the way with the other men by means of a chronic ailment in my persons, I offer my fervor to the enlist of black men of Iowa for our current military regiment. Alexander Clark.
Alexander seals the letter. Catherine enters, takes it, and exits. Barberman crumples the papers he read from. Catherine rushes back to Alexander with an officially stamped and sealed letter.
The governor's office finally sent a response.
Alexander takes it and reads.
Mr. Clark. No. Secretary of Governor Kirkwood.
That's it? Is there anything on the back?
No.
War sounds louder when it's all about you and nothing about you. You see, there's always a game to it, no matter what it is. It's a skill to know what, who, why. When do you push? When do you pull? And sometimes, when you just need to wait.
Susan runs in with an envelope.
Susan G. Clark, where's your brother and sister? Tell me you didn't walk that whole mile from school today on your own.
No, ma'am.
You've got one rule for going anywhere outside this house. Now remind me so I know that you remember.
Always walk together, never
Alone, and yet here you are.
But I can walk alone when I start at grammar school number 2. Right, Mama? In town up the big hill, you could practically watch me from the windows of the house and make out my every step.
Susie.
And I wasn't alone all the way. We ran into grandmother down the road from home. She took Becca and Junior to help her with something at the church and sent me on with this letter she picked up for you in town.
Susan hands Catherine the letter.
Think of today as me practicing, Mama. Practicing for the hill.
Susie, the school on the hill, well, Susie, it may not. They might not. You see, that school, well, they've never taught any black children before.
Well, lucky for them, they're gonna get 3 of them.
No, Susie.
No, but I'm right here. Not much else for me to learn at where I'm going to school now. Becca said she's learned the same stuff twice over already, and Junior's not far behind either. Sometimes in the morning we cross paths with the kids going towards the hill, and I steal glances at the books they carry. They've got these smooth bindings and thick letters on the front, and all of what they carry is like that. Real dense, like the kind of stuff I've never descended on. You like that word, Mama? Descended? Kind of word I want to go into and be rerun from. You know what I mean? I don't always know what I mean, but I can't help it.
How about the letter?
Oh, right.
Catherine opens the letter.
Oh, Alex, he's reversed it. Governor Kirkwood's letting you recruit for the...
1st Iowa Infantry, African descent.
This is good.
1 year? 1 entire year later and he's reversed it?
Well, really, it was his secretary in the response before. It's possible it never even made it to his desk back then.
What am I, Katie? Am I a man? In this country founded on principles of democracy.
Stolen, manufactured democracy. Alexander, what does that word even mean to us?
Iowa is a free state. I was born a free man. I'm surrounded by the word free, free, free. I hear so many times that it's empty to me, Katie. I can offer my life to this country, willingly offer my life, only to be told that I'm not even worth enough to them to die for them. Enough free for my children to flip the same 10 wrinkly pages in a book all their life, but not enough...
Alexander! Susie, to your room. Oh, Alex. Now isn't that nice? How burdened by free that you have been scorned with such an awful issue all your life.
Katie, that's not... I didn't mean it like
Alexander,
that.
I have the capacity to break, but I am not fragile. And you say you would die for them? And who are they, exactly? Me? Your children? Your mother? Who are they, Mr. Clark? You ask who you are, but who is your they? Governor Kirkwood? His secretary? I refuse that. So please say that you've misspoken, and do it to say that you've misspoken in the sense that you will not die for anyone. In fact, you will live beyond yourself because you are free, because you have always had the option to even attempt to voluntarily admit to irrevocable pain and suffering and death even, because you can keep trying to enforce that freedom you have until it is proven to its fullest effect, so much so that it floods over all. That is the man I have believed in. That is the man I married. That is who he is. But if you have found that you have reached a point where you can no longer name yourself, then you are lost to me too. Aren't they everyone and everything we've lost? And everyone and everything we have to claim?
All fades away.
About 1,100 black men joined the Iowa Infantry, later renamed the 60th United States Colored Infantry Regiment. With the commission earned by Mr. Clark for every recruit sign-up, he sent that same money onto those same men, the infantry. A black man in Union uniform at war for his life, and finally having a hand in that outcome. And for that outcome to come out victorious is just right. Change was lapping into the country. Des Moines, Iowa, 1868. The Iowa State Colored Convention. Serving as chairman for the Committee on Address, Mr. Clark presented a speech to the people of Iowa on behalf of their enfranchisement.
To the people of Iowa, to every true, honest, and liberty-loving citizen, do the colored men of your proud Commonwealth appeal for sympathy and aid in securing these rights and privileges which belong to us as free men. having established our claim to the proud title of American soldiers, and shared in the glories won by the deeds of the true men of our color, will you not heed our appeal? We appeal to the sense of justice of the legislature and of the people of our own state, for those rights of citizenship without which our well-earned freedom is but a shadow. We ask no privilege. We simply ask you to recognize our claim to manhood by giving to us that right without which we have no power to defend ourselves from unjust legislation, and no voice in the government we have endeavored to preserve. Being men, we claim to be of that number comprehended in the Declaration of Independence, and who are entitled not only to life, but to equal rights in the pursuit and securing of happiness and in the choice of those who are to rule over us. Deprived of this, we are forced to pay taxes without representation, to submit without appeal to laws, however offensive, without a single voice in framing them, to bear arms without the right to say whether against friend or foe, against loyalty or disloyalty. Without suffrage, we are forced into strict subjugation to a government whose counsels are to us foreign and are called by our own countrymen to witness of violence upon the primary principles of a Republican government, as gross and outrageous as that which justly stirred patriot Americans to throw overboard the tea from English bottoms in a Boston harbor and to wage war for independence. Let a consistent support be given to this principle of government, founded only on the consent of the governed, to this keystone in the arch of American liberty, and our full rights as freemen are secured. Our demands are not excessive. We ask not for social equality with the white man, as is often claimed by the shallow demagogue, for a law higher than human must forever govern social relations. We ask only that privilege which is now given to every white, native-born, or adopted male citizen of our state, the privilege of the ballot box. We ask that the word white be stricken from the Constitution of our state, that the organic law of our state shall give to suffrage irrevocable guarantees that shall know of no distinction at the polls on account of color. And in this, we simply ask that the two streams of loyal blood, which it took to conquer one mad with treason, shall not be separated at the ballot box. That he who can be trusted with an army musket which makes victory and protects the nation shall also be trusted with that boon of American liberty, the ballot, to express a preference for his rulers and his laws. We demand this as native-born citizens of the United States, and who have never known other allegiances than to its authority and laws of our state. And as those who have been true and loyal to our government from its foundation to the present time, and who have never deserted to its interests, whilst even in the midst of treason under subjugation to its most violent enemies. We ask, in the honored name of 200,000 colored troops, 500 of whom were from our own Nile, who with the first opportunity enlisted under the flag of our country and the banner of our state, and bared their breasts to the remorseless storm of treason, and by hundreds went down to death in the conflict, whilst the franchised rebels and their cowardly friends, the now bitter enemies of our right to suffrage, remained in quiet at home, safe and fattened on the fruits of our sacrifice, toil, and blood. We make these demands as one of right and necessity, if not expediency, and are unwilling to believe that a powerful, ruling people, strengthened by new victories with the aid of our hands, could be less magnanimous in purpose and in action, less consistent with the true theory of a sound democracy, than to concede to us our claims. We believe that with expediency, even our demands are not at war, but that with right does public policy strike hands and unite our voices, as it did our muskets, to the maintenance of authority over the disorganizing element which attend a returning peace. We have too much faith in the permanency of this government to believe that the extension of an elected franchise to a few loyal colored men could unsettle its foundations or violate a single declaration of its rights. Therefore, we will not believe but that the people of Iowa will be the first to do full justice to the men of color, as they have been among the foremost in upholding the flag of our country. We rejoice in the fact and congratulate the people, our own color in every part of the land, that in the recent state election, Colonel Merrill has been chosen to the gubernatorial chair, and the entire Republican state ticket elected by the handsome majority of nearly 30,000 votes, and that they stand as firm on the manhood suffrage issue as did their predecessors. In this, Can the colored men of Iowa take courage and say to our white friends, we are Americans by birth, and we assure you that we are Americans in feeling. And in spite of all the wrongs which we have long and silently endured in this, our native country, we would yet exclaim with a full heart, O America, with all thy faults, we love thee still.
Blackout. Catherine giddily reads from a newspaper.
Senator John Crookham's motion to strike white from the Iowa State Constitution passes.
Every morning, Katie?
Yes, I am sticking to my word. I'm going to read this line in this article out loud every day until Election Day. Don't you think it's just the perfect way to wake up? You placed a stepping stone in the river. You did that.
We all did that. You included, Katie. Anybody ask me, you especially. I would never know love by all its variations, never know life by all its depths without your heart and your mind blessing me. I could never stand the heft of it all or pierce the vibrance of overjoy without you, Catherine Griffin.
Well, you are right about that.
I don't think it's a thought that could ever know wrong.
True what they say about the words, and you figured I'd be used to it by now. Is that knocking up a fury? You're about to chop that old wood thing off its hinges. Representative Cloud.
Mrs. Clark, please excuse my noise, but it is a matter of importance.
Please come in.
What's happened?
Mr. Clark, there's been a development with the suit you've made on Susie's behalf. The Muscatine Board of Directors is moving forward to fighting the court's decision. They've already filed the appeal.
Goodness, Alex, Susie will be heartbroken.
You mean?
Yes, they are kicking it up to the Iowa Supreme Court.
It might be what carries us.
I cannot serve as legal counsel on this with my position.
I know.
It might be what keeps us afloat.
But our mutual Attorney General Henry O'Connor said he will do it. This time may very well be the last time.
D.C. Cloud pulls a small book from his pocket and hands it to Alexander.
Henry wanted to see to it that Susie got this.
It's just as you read in the paper, Katie. White is stricken. That is from the whole of the Iowa Constitution, yes?
Alex, are you sure? I mean, are you ready? Are we ready?
The law is right. So I must be too.
Susie runs in from around the corner. Alexander scoops her up as she passes. Susan giggles. Rebecca shuffles in, breathless.
She's quick.
In every way.
Alexander slips the book into Susan's hands.
A new book? Oh, look at that binding. It's so fresh, I can't wait to. But it's just another book for homeschooling, isn't it? Daddy, I thought you said we won. Against the school people, we won, so they're supposed to let us into their hill school.
Susie, they will.
When, Mama? It's been almost 3 whole years. Daddy says it's all right, so we go on in 2 days' time, they're pushing us out the door. That was nearly 3 whole years ago. And then this back and forth with these school people, all these school people. You say that we won, but I don't feel like I've got much. And I can see it out the back window. I can. It's not something I made up or anything. I know that because it's right there. And all the while, I can't do anything else but tear on these books you give me. Becca and Junior have read all you brought almost twice over, and me 3 times. If you tell me anything other than what it is I'm seeing, then I won't be sure how to even think anymore, Daddy. I mean, saying one thing, but I'm living another, it isn't right. I don't feel right. I don't feel right at all.
Alexander goes to hold her, but she breaks away and runs off.
I explained it to her. Not like she don't understand. It's just hard. Hard for everybody. Shows different in everybody.
My kids, all kids, deserve the abundance of knowledge. And we are so close.
So close that it hurts. Alexander, you've got to understand that.
The scene flips away in a flurry, like a turning book.
86 years. 86 years before Brown versus Board of Education was Clark versus Board of Directors. The case landed in the Iowa Supreme Court and it passed. 86 years. Desegregation in the state of Iowa in 1868. Did you know that? You ever hear that? People ever talk about that? Might, but everything with things close, personal, right here. It wouldn't be the school on the hill, but it would be a school in a town that admitted the Clark children. But new things aren't always welcome.
Catherine and Susan sit on the floor. Catherine gently unbraids her daughter's hair. Susan sniffles. Catherine scoops a bit of water from a basin beside her into her hands and releases it over Susan's head. She massages Susan's scalp, working the water through Susan's mind and humming softly to her daughter. Catherine then begins to rebraid Susan's hair, and as she does, Susan gradually starts to hum along with her mother. Catherine finishes the braiding. She takes up some water and sprinkles it on Susan. Susan giggles, promptly turning to splash her mother back. The two are laughing and watering one another. Rebecca enters with a smile, carrying a steaming tea kettle. Blackout.
We never do strive alone, now do we?
Barberman strikes a match. John Brown stands close, trying to warm by the flame. Alexander enters into his own sleep.
What is it now?
Mr. Brown, that's what I should be asking you.
No, what time is now? What year?
1878. Something.
Ah, hot.
You would be proud. I know I am. Education, voting, military service, things are opening up all over for the black people of Iowa. Starting to feel like the state's finally earning those freedom promises they sold. Susie spoke at her finishing ceremony at Muscatine High School. Becca's doing well, helping her grandma down at the church. And Junior's studying law at the State University of Iowa, due to graduate soon. It really is a different world. A world I'm starting to feel proud to call home.
Your home's catching on.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brown, my home is catching on.
Don't be a fool.
John Brown snatches the flame from Barberman, and it's like his very hands have become the flames. He charges Alexander and snatches him by the collar.
Wake up, Alexander.
John Brown tosses Alexander to the floor. In a snap,
Alex!
chaos.
Alex! Fire! Fire!
Flames, heat, and smoke surround Alexander. Rebecca is heard clattering and banging out the house with the children. Alexander scrambles up to his feet.
Mama!
He stumbles to a window and spots the kids and his mother safely outside.
Where's Katie? Katie!
Alexander scrambles through the smoke and wreckage.
Katie!
Suddenly, a choking coughing can be heard down the hall. Alexander sprints, and there a weak and fading Catherine lays on the floor. Alexander scoops her up in his arms and barrels out the home. Engulfed, ruined, charred.
Black home. Black home, black home, old black home. And he would rebuild, as this was his land, and this is his home. He would rebuild in a wooden house that kissed the match. A plotting match, he would rebuild in brick, yes, yes.
A new Alexander walks into his new home determined.
A staggering red brick two-story house completed in 1879.
Catherine joins him. He helps her to a chair as she enters.
A wondrous home, completed just in time to hold festive celebrations for the graduation of the first black graduate from the State University of Iowa, Alexander Clark Jr.
Junior's a lawyer now.
Cheers, music, dancing. Catherine and Alexander pull away into a room alone. He takes her hand and they dance together, sweet, careful, and close. Catherine begins to cough violently. They stop. Grave concern washes Alexander. Her cough settles. She looks up and smiles at him. He eases some and smiles back. They dance and dance and dance, and he spins her, yes, spins her right out his arms and away, disappearing, taking all the music and dancing with her. Alexander, caught in rotation, finishes, writing the last bit of glee. He notices Catherine is gone. The room is so silent. He peers about.
Katie! Katie, where'd you go off to? Did you head to church without me again? Oh, Katie, you fell asleep in this old chair again. Katie! Katie! No. No! Help! Help! Help!
I know, baby.
Time tossed to the dirt by future dreams bound by the water. A river leading out to the chops of the ocean.
Let's just float.
Just listen to the waters, and it dwells.
Yes, more. There is so much more. There is so much more. Whether you want it or not, sometimes that is what it is. In 1884, Alexander Clark would be the second black man, after his son, of course, to graduate from the State University of Iowa. You might know it today as the University of Iowa. And he would, like his son, also earn his education in law. Yes, more. Alexander's time in Chicago, running the conservatory newspaper, selling the conservatory newspaper. Law practices on the East Coast led us to Douglas, his children, legislators, life, death, all lapsed in presidents. August 1890, Alexander Clark would accept the position of U.S. Minister to Liberia, cutting on the, yes, he was cutting on the ocean.
Alexander stands, weathered, spotlit, shining, floating over hot water.
To Monrovia, Liberia, West Africa, and at 64 years of age, 1891.
A doorway entry bell dings. Barberman reckons Alexander in this space.
Alexander Clark, you could be right here, I think. He must be right here, always.
The gravestone reemerges.
If we all could live beyond ourselves like that and retain the timeless, because it is a cut that takes skill and effort to wear and maintain. We must maintain it. We must, or else. Cut too deep, sever too sharp, lose all the blood that makes life living, all that base that connects us to us, and to us, and to us, and won't be, but I won't. No, I knew, and I know, and I'll remember it, right now.
A mirror descends between Barberman and Alexander. A chair appears as well, and all the tools needed. Barberman sits, facing away from the audience, and his reflection is of Alexander, and Alexander is of a Barberman. And with second nature aptitude and blood past skill, we watch him give himself a shake. The end. Thank you so much. I believe that we are about to do a Q&A reception outside.
Or if there's questions in here, you can take
Right
them.
here. Let's take the All right, so for this Q&A, you can ask anyone a question, and playwrights or the actors, anyone, and you can also say like what you attach to or ask what the process is. We're just trying to gauge like kind of where we're at. You just raise your hand. Yeah.
What I kind of envisioned was everything about how Clark's life was, and I grasped on every emotion and saw how hard it was for him to all of the actors' emotions and physical gestures really made me feel emotional in different parts. So, yeah, it is an amazing job, and you should just keep doing the job that you're doing great. Thank you.
Before doing this, how much did any of you know about Alexander Clark?
learning something that I should have known, and that I was like kind of frustrated that I didn't.
Well, most of us also aren't from Iowa, which I think also plays a part as well.
You know, I've read a lot about Alexander Clark because I live in Muscatine, and there's a big apartment building, and this guy I know who lives in his house. But I've never considered the humanity, the people, the emotion, the interaction of a family and so forth as this goes by. This is really a cool experience because it humanizes words in a book of history. You know? Anyway, that's great to be here. Thanks.
Sam, I was wondering, talk about, like, when you were doing research of Simon's entire life, like, how did you decide to frame him for what ended up?
Yeah, I was very overwhelmed by the research I was doing for a long time. And I keep bringing this up because it was such an important moment that I had when I visited his gravesite and spent some time just being there with what remained of him on this earth. And after that, I went home and I was kind of still in that place of feeling a lot more connected to, speaking of humanities, yes, he was here in a lot of ways, he's still here with us. Not only there on his plot where he's buried, but in the impact that he made on a state level, on a national level, on an international level. And I was like, okay, I have all these, I feel it now, so let's return to the logic. And I went through all of my dates and events and made a timeline, and from there, there's kind of, the story just really rose out of the timeline of things.
Yeah, right here.
How did you come to Alexander Clark as a subject?
Like, how did I, sorry, could you clarify?
Like, how did you pick him to write a play about?
Well, I was commissioned.
Oh, okay, yeah. I forgot that. Yes. Sorry.
And also, not only the books tell history and stories, but also music and some music that is written by African Americans tell the story of how African Americans became a person and how they went from being disrespected to being respected and going from there living the best lifestyle they are just because of what Alexander Clark did.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with what I've seen. How many of you are actors other than this, or trained actors? What you do vocally and what you communicate is very impressive. Are you actors other than this? Oh, good.
I would say that I think we all consider ourselves actors for sure. And the majority of us are actually in the MFA acting program at University of Iowa. And we're all at University of Iowa students to learn a bit more about what it means to be an actor, and if it's professionally versus for fun, or just how it impacts our own personal lives as well.
Yes, just to do that too. So we're all kind of gathered in the same department. I would say around theater though, but we also have different ranges. So like some of us are MFA active. We have an undergraduate who's also in the theater department as well. We also have multiple degree seeking person in the department too. So it's different ranges.
Yeah, I'm a playwright.
You've been playwright as well.
Yeah. But with the background in acting,
I guess just, I think a real focus we had for the act, I think Sienna and Josh were really pushing, was to make this feel like a really modern thing. Because I think something I was running into for sure was trying to make it feel like a documentary or some old-timey kind of historical relic when I don't think that moves people the same way as kind of modernizing everything. And you see these people the way they were experienced by the people around them, I think, in the present.
Yeah, right there.
Can you speak to the use of Barberman as kind of the persona, the narrator, and the inspiration for that?
Yeah, it's interesting because Barberman was the first thing I wrote anything for. And it was a version of the monologue where it's talking about cutting on the river, he was cutting on the river, and it's like the musicality of that. I felt like I craved in writing an entry point for myself because it's like, again, I'm so overwhelmed, like there's such density to all the information I was finding, which wasn't few and far between, but where I did find it, it's like a lot of history to retain. So I'm like, there needed to be some type of, there needed to be a vessel in a different way for the audience and for the world that we were going into.
It just so contemporizes the story. I think it's really
Yeah, right here.
I'd like to hear you talk some more about the Catholic Church because I read a lot about Alexander Clark, and you know, you don't read much about Catholics, so I'm assuming that you tell us more about how you know.
I ran into the same thing, not having much to go on source-wise with what I was finding around Catherine. So I made a lot of inferences because we have all this great materials, like for what there was about Alexander Clark, they give him a lot of praise because he did do a lot of great work. But like nobody does, even today or ever, no one ever does these massive movements of things socially or legislatively or academically or so on and so forth by themselves. Like we don't exist in a vacuum. There's so much support that one person requires. There's a community that's required for change of any kind to happen. And with looking at the family structure and with the loss of their children and all these different things, like it had to be the family that was at the core for this man that really kept him going in the work he was trying to do. So with Catherine, yeah, I just building that out of who she was and the role she might have had in this work.
I appreciate the humanity and you know, talking about the children that have died and people who lost them. She's a very strong character.
From what I saw, or like your description, I started seeing as a person who
How's it been for you all as the actors to work on a piece that's so new? I imagine a lot of your work, you end up reinterpreting things that have been produced before, things that have been seen, but working on something entirely
playwrights here, in addition to this playwright and the playwright in the cast, who generate a lot of this new work. And they do, a lot of these people read new plays every Monday.
Awesome.
And produce New Play Festival, which we do every year, which is open to the public, which you should come to. Because there's 4 productions and like 7 readings and like I think even more readings than that. So new work is familiar, unless you guys have a contrast. I mean, I feel like y'all know what's going on. Right here.
Do you have any plans to perform this again in other venues across the state?
There is a plan to realize the full production of this, like what is like that visual medium that this lives in, that you like kind of hear so clearly in the play. And there's also like kind of that like logistical dialogue between like all of the like several commissioning bodies, like 3 different organizations have put like a lot of like time and like funds to like support this work. And so we were really trying to like hear the play and see this thing that like Sienna wrote and hear the voices in it. And then so I think now the time is to then reassess with those people and saying like, okay, how do we want to go about that? Whether it's traveling it around, whether it's doing it here. So I think we're kind of in the question there of like figuring out what exactly that looks like.
I'd love to see it.
So Josh, I think that now we could, before we go have the reception, Muscatine Community College has graciously has some refreshments for us, but I think it'd be nice to give everyone on stage another round of applause.